Welcome, everyone. I feel like I'm at a press conference. So we're so excited that all of you can come out this evening for our spirituality forum. We had such a great response and really, really excited that we can have such a wonderful panel. Our moderator this evening is, you can't hear me, how's that, better? All right, so everyone just has to come right in your chairs. Okay, our moderator this evening will be Dr. Arthur Dobrin. He is, we gave a thumbs up. He is the leader emeritus at the Ethical Humanist Society of Long Island and a professor emeritus at Hofstra University. He'll tell you a little bit more about himself and introduce each of our wonderful panelists. Let's give him a big round.
This is the microphone. That's good?
Yeah.
You can hear. Okay, good. Thank you. I wasn't planning to say anything about myself. But I can, and that is that Glen Dobrin is my wife. Or right the other way around. I am Glen Dobrin's husband. That's how it goes.
Not emeritus.
I think many of you know them. If you don't, you will. So I was asked to be the moderator of this panel tonight of our esteemed guests, and I just have some preparatory remarks, and then we'll get right into this, and I'll explain why we have started even before it's completely filled. There are probably another 30 to 40 people registered who probably will be filtering it. People for quite a time now, probably the last 3 to 4 decades, have been joining together in order to better understand the illness which all of you in this room are very familiar with. Women and men have spoken out as advocates. Some have gone to Albany, to Washington, to demand attention, to be paid, to get research done, so we can better understand, and through that understanding, help one another. The fact is, for what affects any human being, affects all human beings. We all share a common fate, and it's what is known as life. This evening's forum, sponsored by the Adelphi New York State statewide breast cancer hotline and support program, is one of the many undertakings that this organization has undertaken now for 35 years. Just celebrated the 35th anniversary of this program. And as you know, support comes from many sources: physicians, and friends, family and counselors of many sorts, psychologists, and perhaps, and even especially, from volunteers who are at the other end of a hotline call. Now, in this panoply of assistance, there is a group that is all too often overlooked. These are spiritual advisors, ministers and rabbis, and others entrusted with holding the keys to inner wisdom. This is the realm distinct from science, or the mundane, or the profane, if you like. Spirituality is the place that points to where meaning can be found. For some, spiritual solace is found in solitude. For others, it is discovered in prayer. Others find it in community. For some, it is in a God that can be named. and for others it is in the unnamed trace of the universe. So here tonight, we will look at this particular pillar of support from the perspective of three faiths represented by our four panelists. Isma Chaudhry, President of the Islamic Center of Long Island. Father Ryan Creamer, Catholic chaplain here at Adelphi University. Rabbi Dr. Liss from the North Country Reformed Temple in Glen, Cove. And Reverend Betsy Simpson, pastor of the First Presbyterian Church, also in Glen, Cove. I said at the beginning, we sort of were pushing to make sure that the program started more or less on time, because our first presenter tonight, Dr. Chaudhry, has to leave relatively soon. I'm urging her not later than 6:30, because I know where she's going. She's on her way to Hofstra University, where tonight is her last class. She has to make a class presentation because she has chosen, for better or worse, I assume better, to be a student again in a master's program in public health policy. And she will since our class begins at 7, since the traffic was awful tonight, and I know what parking is like at Hofstra University because I deal with it almost every day. For her to get to her 7 o'clock class, she needs to be by about 6:30. So let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Chaudhry. She is a physician and has been involved in the Islamic Center of Long Island for the past 20 years, and was recently elected as the center's first female president. I should add, while it's not the first female president of an Islamic center in the United States, it is probably the second or the third in the entire country. She's a champion for women's rights and dedicated to empowering women by creating programs that enhance academics and develop practical skills. She's conducted seminars and town hall meetings on the rights of Muslim women, Sharia, and civil liberties. She's the co-chair of the Board of Trustees of Long Island WINS, which is an immigration advocacy organization. She's a member of Nassau County's Anti-Bias Task Force. She's a member of the Board of Trustees of the Interfaith Alliance of Long Island and an advisor to Nassau County's Council for Asian Affairs. So, I don't want to take any more of your time. I had a very lengthy biography of hers. The rest of the
Hello, good evening. Arthur, thank you so much for such a gracious introduction. It's an honor for me to be here this evening, and I have to commend the efforts of the Adelphi Breast Cancer Hotline, the service that they're providing, not just to the survivors, but to the caretakers, and the information that they're providing to the healthcare professionals and the support groups. It is commendable, and God bless you, all of you, each and every one who has picked up the phone, who has spoken to someone, who has taken a message down or passed that message on to the right person. I would like to really give a round of applause to honor you people. So I'm going to talk very briefly from an Islamic perspective. Why the Islamic perspective? Spirituality actually does not, as Arthur said, does not need a definition of a religion. It follows morals, ethics, but can get tied to religions as well. So, and since I am at this time the poster child of Islam, wearing my headscarf. So I will briefly make a little connection with Islam and spirituality and survival illness. Why am I doing that? Because you might come across a Muslim woman and it would be important that you would understand the spiritual needs, just the need of that woman who belongs from a different culture, from a different ethnic background. And that's how we all learn to help each other. That's a major component of spirituality, ethics, morals, values. At the end of the day, we have to be for each other and the support that we provide each other. So there's a verse in the Quran which says, "Which one of the favors of thy Lord will you deny?" I find this the verse, very motivating for myself. Whenever, every day we go through trials and tribulations, whether it's personal, political, health, children, not getting to coffee, so many things in life. So, and it just reminds me, it puts me in the perspective, in the right perspective. The other thing is, I happen to be a physician also. In my line of profession, we see it all. We see what the medical services and technology how it has evolved and how it can provide different services, but there's a major piece missing. And eventually, I'm hoping that there would be more research on it as well. But the medical profession has realized that the missing piece in service is service. Giving a cure is a holistic process, and physicians have to realize it, supportive ancillary staff has to realize it, that this is a process. This is not a pill. This is not just one MRI, one breast scan, one ultrasound. This is the approach to a whole patient, a whole person. When we call it a patient, I don't like that. It's very interesting that people don't take person as a whole. So now, what does spirituality do? My mother, God bless her, she's a breast cancer survivor. So I have been in that. It's always fresh. So I have been in that position where I had to take care of my mother. And how did I do that? It's worse when you're a physician, doesn't help. My father had a very rare adenocarcinoma, which is the cancer of a carotid of a gland in the neck. And my father has passed away. So again, I had seen my mother in a caregiver situation, and somehow every time my family would look at me for solutions, and they would look at me to make the right decision. I did not fall back on my medical profession. That did not help me at that time. As a matter of fact, that was one thing which created a barrier for me. I fell back on my spirituality. And again, spirituality. Yes, my religion is a part of my spirituality. But with each one of us, we have our own definition of our own miracles and our own spirituality. So I'm not going to tie it down to specifically to Islam or to Christianity or Judaism or Hinduism or any religion. I had my spirituality, which gave me the strength every time. Because medicine didn't help me. I knew every time. How did it tie down? My mother is a woman of faith, going through chemo, going through radiotherapy. Every time she would come out of it, she was very exhausted. And I would even get more exhausted just seeing you. So what you guys do every day as a caregiver, as supportive staff, as volunteers, it is amazing. I mean, this room is full of heroes. Even just the very thought that you came here this evening to learn about it, to learn how the other person is in pain. When my mother was in a caregiver capacity, her faith, her spirituality helped her a lot. She was very positive. She was extremely positive. And that is one thing that I have learned. That is the strength that we can give each other. We can give to whoever we come across who is apprehended by any kind of serious illness, hope, positivity. Those are the two things that will become our strengths, and they have to become our strengths. Now, it's very interesting. I'm a physician, can't deny that. And how the medical profession has, as Arthur had said, there are a lot of research on spirituality, meditation, all these things. Why? Because science has found out, what does meditation do? Meditation and aerobic exercise does two things. And science forever, in its arrogance, tied itself to just science, did not look at the spirituality aspect of anything. And that is a failing of science, I would say. So what does aerobic exercise and meditation or spirituality do to you in a scientific term? What it does is it releases neurotransmitters and hormones and endorphins. What do they do? All these fancy hormones and things going around. What do they do to us? They increase our immunity. They increase the tolerance level. They increase the pain threshold. It's amazing how important these aspects are. And we have forever ignored the human aspect, the spiritual aspect, the meditative aspect of each other and the human connection that we have. I'm going to stop over here, and I would have loved to stay, but thank you for understanding my constraints. Am I within my 10 minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. You want to stay until 6:30?
Absolutely. And I would like to introduce my backup support today, Mr. Yasser Siddiq. He's going to take some questions, and Sister Shakira Idris. Sister Shakira is a retired teacher, so they will take questions after I leave. And thank you so much, Ken. Absolutely.
I'm going to go a little bit out of order here. That's okay. Nobody can tell me that I can't, so I will. So since she has about 5 minutes, if there's somebody who has a question specifically for Dr. Chaudhry, if you want to ask that now before she leaves, we could do that. Does anybody have a question? Yeah.
What specifically should we touch upon or absolutely avoid when dealing with a woman from your community?
Great question. So what I went through with my mother, that helped me look at my patients very differently. And that was one of the blessings that came out of that. So first off, women in general, not just women, Muslim women, they have a very sensitive body image issue. Muslim women have a definition of, or have a very important issue that the body should be covered. So what my mother had asked was, she did not like the gowns which were there. Very simple thing. I had never looked at it from that aspect. Now I look at those gowns. Come on. I don't know what is the purpose of it. Is it covering the butt or the front? So that is a very important aspect. Just understand that. If there are males in that room, just tell them to be gracious, to be kind, because that is an extra. That is honestly an extra strain. My mother, more than the chemo and the radiotherapy, she was constantly trying to fix her gown, trying to put her shawl. She doesn't cover her head very regularly, but kind of she was so concerned about that. So that is one thing. That would be a huge piece. The other thing is, if just like, if a woman is praying or something, just a smile or an understanding, which she's doing that, or a man, would be huge again. Because now you have to understand there are language barriers, there are ethnic barriers, and then there are religious barriers, and then you're totally exposed. So just a little understanding and kindness towards those things.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. If you're late for your class, I would request Yes, we will. Our next speaker is Father Creamer. He grew up in the parish of St. Patrick's in Bayshore and studied for the priesthood at the Catholic University of America in Washington, the Gregorian University in Rome, and the Seminary of Immaculate Conception in Huntington. Did his pastoral year at St. Mary's in Long Beach and was ordained in St. Agnes Cathedral on June 9, 2012. With his first priestly assignment at the parish of St. Agnes Cathedral. He's currently the Catholic chaplain here at Adelphi University.
I'm very pleased to be able to speak from the Catholic perspective, but also from a perspective which I think encompasses all of us, that of those who know people who have suffered, or those who have cared for them, and those who know people who are currently suffering. The philosopher Albert Camus writes in The Myth of Sisyphus, we have the duty to reconcile the everyday activity with the tragic. It's a challenge, a fascinating way to think. However, it really is part of human existence, and so we're able to move forward, recognizing that despite the challenge that it is, it's so easy because of our experiences. I quote from the Gospel of St. Luke, chapter 7. As Christ approached the gate of the city, a dead man was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow, and a sizable crowd from the city was with her. When the Lord saw her, he felt compassion for her, and he said to her, "Do not weep." And he came and touched the coffin, and the bearers halted, and he said, "Young man, I say to you, arise." Throughout the year, Christians will hear this repeated over and over. He was moved with compassion for her. And that is truly what is at the heart of how Christians approach suffering. Compassion is always important. The very important connection between those who suffer and those who witness suffering is basically understanding. There are some things that we cannot do. Not everyone is a doctor. Not everyone is a physician. Not everyone is a psychiatrist. And not everyone is a relative with the closeness that being related requires and also becomes a blessing. Yet we are all able, in our each and unique ways, to help someone who suffers. That is what comes to those who are able to care And then also the understanding and the comfort is what is able to come to the person who actually suffers as they see person after person after person come to them and bring to them whatever it is that is part of the goodness of their hearts. Their normal, everyday experience that can be a bit of water on the fire that is tragedy. And it's the illness that we all know and we all think of. Different types of illnesses that so many of us have to deal with every day as carers. From the Christian perspective, we can see three very strong things that come from attaching ourselves to spirituality. The first is meditation during one's illness. The quiet periods of rest are not just naps. There are times when the individual soul engages with God, however important it may be. St. Ignatius and St. Teresa of Avila both said, "Lord, set my soul on fire." St. Teresa of Lisieux referred to God as the divine anesthetist. Then there's prayer. If we are suffering, we pray, of course. If we see someone suffering, we pray for them. However we have to make that conversation is perfectly fine. There is nothing that is censored. There is nothing that is barred. And also there is no request that is too much. And then there's strength for the person who is suffering. And it comes in a very unique and revealing way. Unlike any other illness that exists in the world, the unique suffering of the individual, whether it is physical on the part of a patient or mental on the part of one who is connected to them, or perhaps the mental suffering of someone with a more hidden and long-term illness. It shows one's true colors and one's true ability for understanding life before the sight of God. How God sees us is what suffering brings. Following his perception of us, looking down on us in illness or in desperation for one who is in illness as we stand before them, his reaction is always one and the same. His heart is moved to compassion, and he responds to what we say. But his response is tailored to who we are individually. In the last couple of years, I have had to bury a few family members and comfort numerous friends as their families have illness and fall ill under bad situations. Two of the best examples are my good friend from the parish, Pat, who's very clear that I'm in tremendous pain from leukemia. It's awful. I want to pass away as soon as possible. But my faith keeps me going and makes me able to endure. I have no response to that. She does a good job. She comes to church still. She has to set up an appointment and give me strict orders about when to meet her and everything. But she's very clear that her spirituality is guiding her because of her constant conversation with the Lord. She speaks to him in ways that I cannot, I probably do not, but there are ways that are completely unique to her, ways that we can't replicate. The other example is a little more joyful. The best friend of mine in the whole world, with whom I studied for so many years, has had his mother suffer numerous cancers. Her first was uterine, so she had a hysterectomy. Years before he was born, she adopted him. Years later, she had breast cancer, and so she had a mastectomy. And just recently had to deal with a problem and blockage in her abdomen. And so she had a colectomy. And I said to her, Pam, you're doing okay still, faithful woman. Her sense of humor came through. I said, yes, I don't think I'm ever going to die. They're just going to take me apart piece by piece. There's a joy that is part of her life, her connection to God, thanks to the conversation she has with him on a daily basis, and one which she has had for so many years. That is where spirituality really comes in and helps. Anything, any minister, imam, rabbi, priest, doctor, nurse, caretaker, someone who walks into the wrong room because they can't get the number right. This is what helps. This is what guides people and aids them. And that is what is truly important. That is the same spontaneous spirit that Christians recognize as they see the example of Jesus confronted with the widow of Nain. It wasn't on his schedule. It wasn't part of the plan. But he goes forward and he heals. That's what our approach is. That's what's at the heart of our efforts. So I think the best way to look at that perspective is to simply say, we do what we can. Whether we're God or a simple human being, we do what we can because we are united. And that is what is at the heart of our prayers for those who suffer, that they go before the face of God and join with him in his presence forever.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Rabbi Liss. She joined the congregation of Reformed Temple, North Country Reformed Temple in 1996, after having served as the associate rabbi at Temple Kol Amit in Plantation, Florida. She was ordained at Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion in Cincinnati in 1988. She has a BA in Jewish Studies from American University, an MA in Hebrew Literature from Columbia University, where she completed her doctoral coursework in Hebrew language and literature, and a doctorate of ministry from Hebrew Union College, Jewish Institute of Religion. She's been very active in local and national Jewish and interfaith organizations. She's the president of the North Shore Clergy Group. She's on the Community Advisory Board of the North Shore LIJ Hospital in Glen, Cove, the Community Advisory Board for the Bio-Gene Bank Research Project at the North Shore LIJ Health System, and is currently the Human Rights Commissioner for Nassau County. She's active in the Central Conference of American Rabbis and the Women's Rabbinic Network, and she is a member of the Long Island Temple Educators Organization. Rabbi Liss.
Hello, everybody. I want to ask a question. How many of you are breast cancer survivors? Okay, well, I'm a member of the club. That's good. Hey, I'm good. I'm talking to you, so it's not off. I was officially, and I put that in quotes, diagnosed the day after Yom Kippur in October 2008. I say officially, as 2 weeks before, the radiologist who read my mammogram told me that I had breast cancer right there, and then proceeded to do my sonogram. She took me and my partner back into her reading room and blew up my mammogram and showed me the breast cancer, and it looked like a series of railroad tracks. And how many of you are Jewish? This happened to me on a Friday afternoon. Okay? So it also came in the midst of timely day service preparation when my mind was already in a whirlwind. I put it out of my mind the best that I could, though it was not far from my mind, as all of you can imagine. I had the biopsy in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and by Yom Kippur, I could not lift the Torah scrolls because of that biopsy, so I couldn't hold a scroll during the services. We were hoping that she was wrong, but she wasn't. And we were hoping, you've been there, but of course she wasn't wrong. This is what she does for a living. But most of them don't tell you. They tell your doctor who then tells you, but I was really lucky. She told me. There was no cancer in my immediate family or really extended family, and I was tested and did not have the BRCA gene. I believe that there are lessons to be learned from every life experience. I am not a why me person. I know that 1 in 8 women are diagnosed with breast cancer nationally and 1 in 7 on Long Island. I do not believe that God punishes people by giving them illnesses. I believe that things happen randomly in the universe. We all delude ourselves by thinking that we're in control of our own lives. We may be in control of some small part of our lives, but over most things, we really aren't. There's an old Yiddish expression that says, man tracht und Gott lacht, man plans and God laughs. And that expression is with me every day of my life. Back in the 80s, I read a powerful book written by Rabbi Harold Kushner, When Bad Things Happen to Good People. He wrote this book after his son was diagnosed with a rare genetic disease that caused him to age rapidly, and he was dead by the end as a 17-year-old. This powerful book begins with the premise that it is not productive to ask why bad things happen to good people, but he asks when bad things happen to good people, how do you respond? Because there's no answer to the why question, as much as you want to try to find it. So what's important is the when. How do you respond when bad things happen to you? Rabbi Kushner's philosophies helped me to frame my own way of thinking as I've helped people deal with their personal crises and challenges over the years. Random things happen to us. Our challenge is how to respond to them when it does. I hate the expression that God doesn't give you more than you can handle. This is not my theology. Many people can't handle what they're given, and a lot of them wind up on the streets. We're lucky when we can handle what comes our way. The question is, how do you deal with it? And this is a real test that at some point every single one of us will have to face. As a rabbi, I've been privileged to learn a tremendous amount of people, to learn a tremendous amount from people I've known over the years as I've walked with them metaphorically as they've handled their lives with cancer. In fact, the courage displayed by many people, such as Andrew Firestein, of blessed memory, a 20-year-old who recently died after battling Ewing sarcoma since he was 5 years old, and Ed Fox, who lived with stage 4 colon cancer for 9 years and died recently, both members of my congregation who helped me through their example when I got my diagnosis. I know that their faith in God helped them keep going for many years. I know how much our healing services did for them, and knowing that people were praying for their recovery helped bolster them in their dark moments. I knew that I would get through my treatment because they did, and I could too. In the Torah, we read that when Miriam is struck with leprosy, Moses calls out a simple, direct prayer to God, beseeching God on his brother Aaron's behalf to heal Miriam. He asks, El na rafana la, God, please heal her. These words, with the pronoun adjustment in Hebrew, became my mantra when I was getting chemo and radiation. Our daily prayers contain a prayer that reads, Heal us, God, and we shall be healed. Save us, and we shall be saved. Grant full healing to our every illness, wound, and pain. Blessed are you, God, who heals the sick. We have a prayer known as the Misha Beirach, a prayer for healing that calls upon God of the generations of the past to grant healing to the sick. A more contemporary version of this prayer, written by Debbie Friedman of blessed memory, asks for God to grant healing of body and healing of the spirit as well, recognizing that we're not always going to be able to get well. So for this reason, we ask for healing of our spirit to help us have the courage and strength to face our own struggles. Weekly, when we sing this prayer in my congregation, it is one of the most powerful and spiritual moments in the service as we think about those who are in need of our prayers for healing. I've had two experiences, one not long ago, when I visited people in the hospital who were clearly dying, and I said prayers for them with their families. Both of these people remarkably pulled through and are alive today. Both families have attributed their recovery to my prayers. I believe in the power of medicine, and I believe in the power of prayer. I believe that praying and being part of a religious community is so important to our physical and emotional well-being. Seeing a community reach out to someone who is ill shows us what the true meaning of religion is. When we are moved to action, we are answering someone's prayer. When we are present to listen, to hold someone's hand, to provide food, to drive someone to the doctor, we are answering prayers. For me, belief in God and being part of a religious community provides us with strength, with courage and grounding, and helps us in our time of need. In the movie, The Frisco Kid, Gene Wilder plays Avram, a young rabbi sent from Poland to San Francisco in 1850. At one point during his journey, he's taken captive by Indians. Struggling through a great drought, the tribal chief asks Avram, yes or no, can your God make rain? Yes, Avram replies, but he doesn't? No. The chief demands to know why not. Avram replies, he doesn't make rain. He gives us strength when we are suffering. He gives us compassion when all we feel is hatred. He gives us courage when we're searching around blindly like mice in the darkness. But he doesn't make rain. Suddenly, there's lightning and a clap of thunder, followed by a torrential downpour. Avram continues. Of course, sometimes just like that, he'll change his mind. We've all witnessed miracles. Each day, frankly, in itself is a miracle. Unfortunately, none of us will live forever. For me, in sickness and in health, my personal belief makes life more beautiful, fulfilling, and awe-inspiring. My personal beliefs help me deal with bad things that happen to good people. As bad things happen to good people all around this world every single day.
Reverend Betsy Simpson has been the pastor of the First Presbyterian Church in Glen, Cove for over 10 years, having previously served as pastor of the First Presbyterian Church of Southwold. She received her BA from Hanover College in Hanover, Indiana in 1971, spent her junior year of college at the University of Ghana in West Africa. She earned her Master's of Divinity from Princeton Theological Seminary in 1974. In 1978, she earned an MA in Education from Castleton State College in Vermont. Then her Master's in Theology and Christian Education from Princeton Theological Seminary in 1982. She's believed that the church should be an open and welcoming place for all people, regardless of race, nationality, sexual orientation, or socioeconomic position. She's interested in and advocates for peace, nonviolence, social justice, caring for the environment, alleviating poverty and homelessness, and building the community of nations.
Just to be clear, I'm here because of Jen. She invited me to do this, and I said, well, if it's all right for her, it must be all right for me. I'm not a breast cancer survivor. I have known many people who are. But listening to all the others, I'm thinking, okay, just about everything I had to say has already been said, which Janet also warned me about if I went last. But at any rate, I'll soldier on anyway. I'm not sure where or how to begin because I've never been asked before how my Christian faith relates to serious illness. Maybe that's because of the path I've taken. I mean, if you heard my bio, it took me a long time just to become a minister. I really didn't think that's what God wanted me to do, but God's persistent that way. At any rate, starting with the Bible, there was the notion a long time ago, fairly widely accepted, that illness or disability and the like were related to one's sinfulness, whether you had deviated from the path, or if your parents had. There was even the expression, the sins of the father will be visited upon the next generations and so forth, and that was sort of in everybody's mind. But the idea that God was punishing either the father or the individual, him or herself, for sins committed and disobedience and so forth, even Jesus, whom Christians follow and regard as our Redeemer, our Savior, our Messiah, when he was asked the question of whether someone was blind because of their parents or because of their own sin, he basically said neither one. In other words, there isn't a God who is punishing us for our transgressions by visiting us with serious illnesses or conditions or whatever. Instead, it is simply part of being a human being on this earth, that some of us get one disease or another, some of us get no particular disease, but we have other struggles and crises in our lives that we have to deal with. But there's no cause and effect relationship there between your faith or your lack of it and serious illness or conditions. That is to say, it's not your fault. If you have breast cancer, it's not your fault. If you have some other kind of cancer, it's not your fault. If you have Parkinson's disease, it's not your fault. And many people, I think, struggle with that. Many people think that, that somehow that their disease is their fault, that we did something wrong to deserve it. And they also feel like this is somehow the defining thing in their life, that they are a breast cancer, sufferer or whatever it is. But the true value and worth of an individual has nothing to do with your health condition. All of us are imperfect. None of us have any reason to be in pain or to struggle one way or another. It's just part of being a human being. So Jesus, for Christians, was a healer. He was a teacher. He was a prophet and a redeemer. Much of his ministry, much of his life on this earth was given to reaching out to those most isolated, those most disenfranchised, either by their physical condition, their health, or their economic condition, they were poor, or maybe their gender, because they were female, or maybe because of their nationality. They were Samaritan or Gentile or even Roman soldiers. For some of them, he offered specific healing, giving sight to the blind and hearing to the deaf, giving voice to those who were mute, giving the ability to walk to those who were lame, cleansing lepers, casting out demons, even raising some from the dead. But what he was more focused on was healing people's spirits, giving them hope, giving them human dignity, expressing to them that they had worth, that they were deserving of hope and compassion and peace, and that they were not in God's trash heap. They might be in the world's trash heap, but they were not in God's trash heap. Jesus reminded them they were still children of God and were worthy of justice and love. When I, as a pastor, am talking with folks who are dealing with serious illness, I try to offer the same thing, that same kind of kindness, that same compassion, that same encouragement, that same dignity. The same thing that I've received when my life has been in turmoil. I lost my husband this past year to Parkinson's disease. He suffered it for roughly 7 years or so, and the last 2.5, he was bedridden and living at the Long Island State Veterans Home in Stony Brook. He had been a very active person, and he was also a Presbyterian minister. So being bedridden was a lot of suffering for him. He was not able to do very much. Visiting him there as often as I could, I helped to make his struggle and his suffering a little easier. But there was no recovery in either of us, our minds. We knew that this was just the slow path toward the end. Sometimes I would read from the Psalms to ease his spirit, but honestly, most of the time, he got more comfort out of my being there and our sharing stories. Sometimes I brought pictures. I told him what was going on with the family or with our friends or with the church. And that, more than anything, kept him connected to life, because serious illness often disconnects us from the rest of life. It overwhelms us. It takes over our whole being. And being connected with what you've always considered to be your life is extremely important. And so the words of the 23rd Psalm would come to me often, still do. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. It's that whole sense of being connected and not suffering alone that is so important. If there's one thing about the church that I think Jesus taught over and over again,
There's one reason why he gathered a group of 12 disciples, because they were going to need each other. They became the foundation of the Christian church. We all need each other, and people of faith need each other to lean on in times of pain and struggle and suffering. Because what we can glean from someone else when we're suffering, we can turn around and lend to someone else when they're suffering. That song, Lean on Me, is a really powerful one, I think. We all know that human life is limited in time. None of us is going to live forever. We don't know how much time we have. We can't control our lifespan, no matter how hard we try. And it seems today we're trying very hard. We're exercising like crazy. We're trying to find the right food, the right diet. We're trying out meditation and all these other things. We're getting all the right medications for whatever it is that ails us. We are determined to find that path to immortality, but it's a foolish wish. None of us will live forever. One of the things that people have shared with me about dealing with serious health issues is that they don't feel in control anymore. And of course, we all get that way. We think we're in control of our lives, but we are not. And they also feel that they're not of any use anymore. I used to be able to do this, and now I can't do any of that anymore, and I feel useless. Well, even if we're in the throes of serious illness, even if we live with significant disabilities, we can still offer ourselves to other people. We still have gifts to give. The key is to find those gifts within ourselves, identify them, and then share them. Several years ago, maybe 10 or so years, I'm not sure. And by the way, I've been in Glen Cove for 16 years, not 10. But at any rate, about 10 years ago, I met a young man at a church conference. He played the guitar and he sang songs of hope and humor, despite the fact that, as I later learned, he had brain cancer. He was a husband, he was a father, he had 2 young children, he had a good position in the financial sector when he found out that he had inoperable brain cancer. He was given 6 months to live. His initial reaction, as one might expect, was anger, denial, frustration, confusion. Not why me, but what do I do now? What do I do now? Was his question to the Almighty. He was the son of a biblical scholar. He had grown up in Lebanon, and he had gone to college in the U.S. where he met his wife. They fell in love, they got married, they had 2 kids, 2 beautiful, healthy children. And now this, brain cancer, 6 months to live, what do I do now? David Bailey. Perhaps you've heard of him, heard of his music, as I did. I invited him to Long Island on 3 different occasions, and he came and he sang his music. And once he got beyond his initial anger and frustration, he decided he was going back to his music, which he had enjoyed during his college years, but had given up in order to go and get a job and earn enough to support his family. Well, David went back to his music, to writing songs and singing them, and soon he began to tour all over the country. Eventually, he was touring all over the world, sharing his message of hope and life and encouragement, especially to people who were also dealing with cancer and other serious illnesses. David, in fact, touched many, many lives, mine being one of them. It didn't matter that I wasn't suffering from cancer, breast cancer, or brain cancer, or any other kind of cancer. I knew that his message of hope was an important one. He lived eventually with that brain cancer for a little over 14 years before death finally came. His story still inspires me. He used to love to make coffee, have a cup of coffee day or night. He had coffee all the time. It was one of the requirements. If you wanted him to come and sing, you had to offer him coffee. And he even had a song about it called Java Junkie. But someone said, how can you drink that coffee at 10 o'clock at night? Doesn't it keep you awake? He said it helps. He liked being awake. He wanted to be alive all the time. So as he put it, his music kept him putting one foot in front of the other and living every day as fully as he possibly could. That was his gift, and he found it and he used it, and he helped a whole lot of people. There were many times when he was in pain, but he knew that he still had more life in him to share, hope to inspire, and courage to foster. Every one of us has a gift, probably more than one gift. And that is what determines who we are and what our sense of worth is in this world. Because in God's eyes, we're all priceless, we're all precious, we're all worthy. God walks with us every step of the way and will carry us when we think we can't walk any further. That's the promise of my faith, the Christianity that I try to share with everyone.
Well, thank you. Dr. Chaudhry did leave, but we do have a stand-in. Or sit-in, whichever.
I can sit down if you want.
All right. Here. So we have about 45 minutes or so for your participation. If you have questions of our panelists, please come up to, where's the microphone? Oh, okay, the microphone will come to you. Just raise your hand and you will be handed the microphone. Does anybody have a question? Comment?
My question is not for anyone in particular, but I was wondering how you would deal with someone in your congregation who has given up hope. You know, how you just let them experience that? Do you try to give them hope?
Let me see. Which is the microphone I could actually take out?
Yep,
This
that's
one?
the one.
It doesn't matter. Well, I don't have any questions there will be, so just answer the question.
Okay, as far as the losing hope, that is definitely one of the major sins in Islam. Disparity is not part of our religion. We definitely need to have hope. And when God was creating life, he told angels that I am going to create life. So angels were like, why are you creating this human being? Why aren't we good enough? And he was like, no, we will create this human being, and you'll see they'll follow my word. They will spread my word. They will spread my religion. And then they said, what's going to happen afterwards? And he said, I'm going to create death so that they can return back to me. And the angels were very surprised. They were like, how can you create death? These people will not be able to enjoy one single moment of life because they will be worried about it. And God said, no, I created hope. So hope is actually a creation. Hope is a creation that God created himself, so that we can actually enjoy life. We can live the life to the fullest. So in Islam, if someone loses hope, the best thing is like to tell them to come back to the religion, to be more understanding of the religion. And when it comes to the diseases or tribulations, one of the basic principles that we have, it's actually the belief system we have, is آمنت بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر والقدر خيره وشره من الله تعالى والبعث بعد الموت. Let me translate that. Part of the belief. So this is basically our belief system in detail. A lot of you might have heard the belief there is no God but God and Muhammad is his messenger. Those are the basic words that we say if someone wants to become Muslim. But the belief system says we believe in God, وَمَلَائِكَتِهِ, in angels, books, and messengers. What it means is angels, like we believe in Mikael, we believe in Gabriel, we believe in Israfil, different books, different angels. We believe in books, we believe in the Torah, we believe in the Gospel, we believe in Quran, we believe in the scriptures of David. We believe in the messengers, we believe in Adam, Noah, Ibrahim. There's a whole list of the messengers in Quran. We believe in the day of judgment and Yawm al-Akhir. But the last two parts, وَالْقَدْرِ خَيْرِهِ وَشَرِّهِ مِنَ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى, we believe in destiny coming from God, whether it is good or bad, it is from God. And وَالْبَعْثِ بَعْدَ الْمَوْتِ, and life after death. So if anyone comes to our congregation with a sign of losing hope, we tell them the first thing is God is in control, that everything, whether good or bad, is coming from Him. Because this is our core belief system. And then we can go on and explain them, like how a tribulation or how a disease can be beneficial for you. It could be a means of expiation of sins. It could be a means of elevation of ranks. It could be a means of an humbling experience. There's a lot of things that I can go in, but I don't want to take too much time. I hope that someone answered the question. I would pass it to Father Freeman.
It's a normal case to run into someone who despairs. The church simply remains with them. The best thing you can do for someone that despairs is keep close to them, listen to them, and give them the benefit of silence and not actually give instruction a lot of times. That's how it works on a daily basis for the Christian practice, but there's always a vigilance about providing any advice and any need, responding to any need that is there. And always, of course, there's the prayer of the person. You may not be in front of the suffering person, but the prayer that you make at any time, that conversation you have with God, is certainly heard. He knows exactly about the subject which you are mentioning and cares for it. That's why we pray in confidence.
Well, I guess if I encounter someone who's feeling hopeless, and it might vary, my response would vary, I'm sure, from person to person. It would depend on what I knew about their life and their context and all of that. But basically, I would try to let them know that it's okay if they're not feeling hopeful, that's, God understands that. And that I would ask if I could pray for them, that they might have hope. I would also try and find a way to connect them to one or more other people with whom they would feel comfortable sharing their feeling, so that we might surround them and pray for them, because when people feel hopeless, it's usually when they feel most alone. And I think people need to be connected. And the other thing is, I might, depending on the person, ask them to do something for someone else, because oftentimes that takes you out of yourself and your own situation, and you begin to realize there are other people hurting and other people in need, and that gives your life value. That's
I think it depends on where the person's at and whether they're feeling helpless because they're depressed versus they're helpless because they're end stage of life and there's nothing left that can be done for them medically. And the approach is different for somebody who's depressed, because we look for ways to help connect them and to help them see prayer. But if the person really is, as in Kubler-Ross's definition, in the stage of acceptance of where they are, that's a whole different thing. And you're there with them, you walk the walk with them, you hold their hand, and you're there, and you have to acknowledge what they're feeling. It's always really important to acknowledge what they're feeling, and truly, we get to a point in certain illnesses where there isn't a lot of medical hope left. So then it's how can we booster the person through family, friends, community, and through faith. So it's different if they're just clinically depressed or if they're really at end stage. I had experience as a student rabbi where somebody, ironically, his name was Lucky. He was in his 40s. He was dying of cancer. I knew I was gonna wind up doing Lucky's funeral, and I went to see him, and when I walked into his room, and I am a young student, totally inexperienced, Lucky asked me if I would get a gun that was in the room and kill him, okay? He knew he was dying, and he died a few days later, but he was in agony, so much pain, physical pain. And I will never forget being in that kind of situation. Fortunately, I've never been in any situation like that again when somebody really did ask me to help him kill himself. But sometimes that pain and despair is really, really real. And then what do? I talk to him, and I talk to him about how our lives are in God's hands, not in our hands, and God decides when to take our lives. It's not our decision, unless now you live in the state of California or Oregon or Washington, in which case you get to participate in that decision as well.
How do I get through this?
I'm a breast cancer survivor. 2 months ago, my brother's wife passed away from lung cancer. And I felt like the family looked to me because I survived, and they wanted me to help her through her journey. And I still can't get over the fact that I'm angry with her, because from the day she got diagnosed, she lost hope. And she believed from that day on that it was a death sentence. And I just can't get past that. And I think this hope issue sometimes backfires because she's left behind my brother and his 3 children in their 20s who are angry with God because they prayed and they hoped and they did everything they could think of to save their mom, their wife. And it didn't work out. So now we're getting toward Christmas, and it's going to be a very miserable holiday for us. I'd love you to speak to this.
I feel badly for you. I do, and I don't have an answer. I would hope that in time you could come to some level of peace with the fact that all of us have, no control over our life, but we have control over how we respond to what we're going through. And she made her choice. Now, I can understand the husband, the father, and the children being angry. My guess is I would be too. But anger's okay. It's one of those emotions that, that has a place in our lives. There's nothing wrong with it. It probably is going to make a very miserable Christmas this year. It may make a miserable Christmas for a couple of years. My sense is that if you can lend some of your strength and your experience to that family, that over time, eventually they will heal. But it could take a good amount of time. It really could. But maintaining the family relationships and sharing the positive things as you find them. They may be just little things. Eventually, I think time will bring some healing, but not quickly, I don't think.
We always have to remember to distinguish between our own experience and the experience of someone else, no matter how close they may be. When someone seems to have lost hope, or some even say, lost faith, it's a way in which they speak
I don't really have a lot to say because I've never really experienced. The closest I got to something like this was when my father passed away a couple of years ago. He was actually diagnosed with liver cirrhosis, and it was going on for many years. And it came to a point where the doctors told him that there's no cure for this. It has gotten so worse and so bad that the only way possible is to get a transplant. Being 72 years of age didn't really help to get the liver transplant. And at the same time, my father wasn't very eager to go through the whole process because it was lengthy and he knew it would be difficult. And this was one of the last few nights of Ramadan where he actually got into a car accident. And then the Eid, which is the event right after Ramadan, which is supposed to be a celebration, it was definitely a very miserable one. And he was in the hospital for a few days, and he eventually passed away. And he told me, I asked him, why weren't you so keen in getting the surgery or getting this transplant or what's going on? Why don't you take your health so seriously? And he told me something. He was like, we believe in death and we believe in life, and we believe that it is created at a certain time by God. And when my time is up, I will have to go. And then he quoted this verse from Quran. We have created death and life only so that you can do good actions. And the beauty in this verse from Quran is actually when God mentioned life, he mentioned death before life. So the fact that we are here, we know that we have to die. So that is also a creation. It's the journey that we have to go take to go back to reach to meet our Lord. That's the best way to answer.
Sure.
I want to switch to the doctorate part of my name, and which is a doctorate in pastoral counseling. I really recommend to your brother and his kids that they get some grief counseling. I think it's really important, and the people in this room who work the hotlines know this. It's just really important for them to be in a room with other people. Group therapy is wonderful because you then hear from other people. You see that you're not the only person going through. You make new friends, and they help you walk through what they have to walk through. And for you being a survivor, I'm happy that you're here to share the story with us. But they can't look to you, and you can't take it upon yourself to be their healer because it's not going to work. But the best thing that you can do is try to get them connected with somebody who can really help them because it's painful and it will be for a long time. And every single thing, we all know this, that we walk with families that have gone through death. Every single holiday, birthday, anniversary, anything that's important to us the first year is exceedingly painful. See if you can help them get help.
Hi. On Friday, I had to take a good friend to the hospital because she was in a lot of pain. And she has bilateral hip replacements, so she thought that was the cause. And over many years, she's collected many narcotics and pain relief medication. These hips are 17 and 15 years old. So we get to Southside, and they find she's running a low temp. And as they're investigating the hips, they find she has cancer on her left kidney. And I have been vigilant. I've been there every day so far, except for today. And when they did testing on Monday and they confirmed that she has cancer, again, she has lost 2 lobes of her lungs. And she's been doing fine. She goes to the Ali program at Stony Brook for older learning. She was in Paris 4 days before Paris got blown up. And I knew I had to keep in touch with her when I heard about that because I knew that she loves Paris. It was her 3rd trip there. So I knew she was going to have post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms from that. And so I have been talking to her routinely. But as of the cancer, now I have to tell you, the woman is not religious. In the 90s, she became a spiritual seeker. And she had many friends, and she questioned all of us about our religion and why do we feel connected to religion. It had to do with the way her parents brought her up in Jewish culture, but without faith, is the way she puts it. And she can't find faith. She can't connect to faith. I mean, her cousin has been in the hospital with her. Her cousin is devout. You know, I'm like, I'm devout. She loves to be with devout people, but she doesn't get it in her heart, in her soul. She doesn't get it. And she says that so openly, you know, that it frightens me. And at the same time, I'm like, what's missing? What can I say, you know, to help her make this connection at 76 when she's in this traumatic event at this point? And that's where I need some help, I think.
That wasn't an easy question.
Can you repeat the question because
Sure. Basically, the question was, how do we help somebody who's 76 years old who hasn't been connected formally to religion, but is seeking some sort of spirituality to find something that's going to help her get through her kidney cancer diagnosis? Okay. I have questions. Can I share a story, please? I have a friend. I'm a metastatic breast cancer warrior. Not about me. I was connected with someone through my church who was also experiencing cancer. She's an older woman in her 70s. And we connected, and I thought that. Well, I didn't, did I say old? Oh, okay. All right. Believe it or not, I'm close to my 60s, so I understand. But anyhow, what I'm trying to get to is this. I met this woman, and I thought that I could come into her life and help her with what she was going through with cancer. We have something to relate to. But she told me this beautiful story about her daughter who died from cancer. Her daughter had no religion. Her mother's very religious. Her mother is
a God-fearing woman. And her daughter, up to the day that she died, it had nothing to do with God. Her mother prayed for her and continued to pray. God, I believe God is in control of everything, and God has his way of handling situations. And what he did for this young lady, what he did for the mother, not so much for the young lady, but for the mother, was let her know for sure, confirm that he is there, regardless of her daughter not believing in God. But it was at her daughter's last breath that she called out to God. Her last breath. And she, at that time, confirmed to her mother that she's going to meet her maker. And sometimes that's what life and death. It may not happen when we want it to happen, but it may happen. You just have to be, visual, prayerful.
My question for you is she looking for a spiritual connection at this time, or are you looking for the spiritual connection for her?
I am looking for her because she told me just a couple of months ago that she's tired of being a seeker. She hasn't found what she's been looking for 20 years, so she's given up.
So give me where she lives.
Central Iceland. We're from Central.
Talk to me after this.
All right.
Okay?
Okay.
Is there another question? No?
I only have time for one more.
We still have just a little bit of time. Oh, I don't have a microphone. Thank you. Well, the program is about spirituality. And we have representatives from various religious faiths. And I suspect that we also have people in this room who perhaps don't have a traditional faith of the kind that's been presented here. And how do we reconcile all of these differences? Is there anything that really holds us all in common? Whether we're Muslim, or Christians, or Jews, or non-believers, or people who are seeking, agnostics, atheists, non-theists, Hindus. Is there anything that we could say that would make sense to all of us, whatever our theological or lack of theological beliefs might be? And I think that there is.
Humanity.
What we all have in common is that we're all human beings. And all human beings have certain common needs. As human beings, we also have limitations. No matter how smart we think we are, there are ultimately some questions that we can't answer. And those questions, if we attempt to answer them and come up with answers, are matters of faith and not really matters of understanding. We can't be convinced of certain things. We either have to believe them and accept them as a matter of faith, or we don't. We can't convince people to believe certain things because we believe them and they don't. But whatever somebody's belief, lack of belief might be, however they might define their religion and their God, we all are human beings. And I heard some things that were said tonight that I think were in common. And that's what I would like to leave us with, and perhaps this is my own bias that I bring to it. Nevertheless, here's what I heard tonight. which is that when we are ill, when we are faced with a disease, when we are faced with our own mortality, we can't blame ourselves for that illness. There are things that happen to the best of us. Whatever our intentions, however good we have been, no matter how hard we have tried, no matter how faithful we have been, sometimes bad things just happen. And they could very well happen to any one of us. We don't know why. We simply have to accept the fact that it has happened. There are matters that are beyond understanding. Why it has happened to me, we don't know. Having said that, there are things that we are left with. And that is, whatever else is true, we must do good actions. We must continue as a caregiver to continue to be good to those people who are in need. Whatever else we can provide for somebody, the despair that they're in is to continue to offer our hand, to offer our kindness. They can accept it or not. We're not in control of that. But what we can do is that we can continue to offer ourselves as best we can to provide them with some hope if they're capable of taking it from us. As someone once said, only connect. We have to connect. Whatever that connection might be for us, one other person, a caregiver, someone who is no longer with us, someone that we can't see but we accept as a matter of faith. Connect. Help someone connect. Provide that connection. Be there as that connection. Touch. That's what it is. Touch someone. Let them know that they have been touched. That's the hope. That's the support we can give. In my view, that is what spirituality is all about. We have another question.
Being a breast cancer survivor, it also teaches you a lot. Sickness, adversity, teaches you something. And you look to life. Not so much death, but you look to life. And being in several support groups, this is the channel that seems to be going through everybody. That they appreciate life, they want to be helpful, and they want to give back.
And that's what you all do. You're touching people every day.
Hi, I'm a breast cancer survivor also. When I was diagnosed, I did not ask why me. I said, why not me? Because I wouldn't want it for my worst enemy. But what kept me was the Psalm 119. It says, I shall not die, but live and declare the name of the Lord. And there was another scripture that I spoke about, and a pastor said to me, wow, that's a powerful scripture. Psalms 119, verse 71, it says that I was glad that I was afflicted, so I will know the statute of the law, or to know the law of the Lord. And that brought me closer to God. I mean, I was close to him, but I felt, and then I went into Romans and I did more reading, and I'm reading more, and I'm understanding the words more. And that is why I say it was good that I was afflicted. So when anybody comes to me,
I can give them a verse of scripture, tell them this is what brought me through. I'm not saying it will do it to you, but that's what brought me through.
I think to summarize the spirituality, I would say that all you need is love. And I think love is the answer, love and compassion. And if that's how we respond to one another, only good can happen.
Well, thank you all so much for coming tonight. Let's give all of our speakers a And it's so nice to see some new faces out here tonight. So if you have any questions about the different things that we do, you can probably turn to someone to your left to be able to tell you, or you can come talk to me. We gave everyone an evaluation. If you could please fill out an evaluation. And if you're new to us, make sure we're able to get in contact with you. We have phone cards out on the front desk that you'll be able to fill out and give us your information so you can come to the other events that we put on. It was so nice to see all of you. Definitely.